A single chime, low and brief. Cubes shift into place. A blue line cuts across black space. It awakens quietly, like a building stirring at night. That tone, cold, deliberate, was not incidental. It was chosen. Every plane, every shade, every echo came from a moment when technology, ambition, and image were colliding. The design is sculptural. Ribs, deep grooves, angular vents, flat matte surfaces that reject reflection. It reads like a small monument, its posture, capable of standing upright, gives it presence. It crosses objecthood into architecture. In the moment, electronics were no longer toys. They began to be cultural fixtures. The choice to adopt an aesthetic in brutalism, a vocabulary borrowed from concrete civic forms, was a way to give weight, seriousness, permanence. Where earlier consoles might flirt with color or gloss, this one sealed itself in shadow, like it wanted to age and be remembered. In the halls of architecture, brutalism spoke of honesty. Structure revealed, material raw, joints celebrated. In this box of silicon, the same intent. Seams are visible, the ribs are functional and formal. The choice of deep black and the single strip of blue framed the device not as a gadget, but as a part of a visual lineage of monuments, fortresses, and civic weight. Internally, the engineering demanded substance. To house custom chips, heat sinks, and cooling arrays required real volume. That functional necessity gave the designers breathing room to let form reflect function. That is why the structure is uncompromising, because it had to be strong, stable, and built to last. The startup chime and the visual morphing of cubes into a mark play the same role that a building's entrance plays. The threshold between the outside and interior. The few notes owed to a sound designer give the room time to hush. Combined with the visual, the opening moment asserts that what lies beyond is different. That transition needed to feel meaningful because the machine was being positioned not merely as play, but as passage. And behind the scenes, that sound was carefully crafted. It had to align with the visual personality. The hardware's ability to render fog, motion blur, soft lighting meant that designers could time that opening, so that light and tone rose gradually, not abruptly. The effect was seamless. The feeling of stepping into a space, not flipping on a device. That space extended itself into the advertisements. Waiting rooms that felt suspended, with faces mutating, silent corridors, a soft loop of voice. One campaign, famously called Third Place, was directed by a known surrealist filmmaker. The brief showed people going through halls, encountering odd versions of themselves, parts detaching, a duck-like figure speaking. The visuals were black and white. They played less as commercials and more as fragments of dreams. Sony was trying to distinguish the console in a crowded market. They were saying, this is not another box, it is a bridge. That bridge needed mystery to feel real. The refusal of direct sales imagery, controllers, or happy players gave space for imagination. The campaign director said that the black and blue branding was central in shaping the creative tone. Another advertisement, years later, stacked human bodies into a mountain that climbed city structures shot in harsh urban light. That visual, crowds piling into form, speaks to escalation, mass, ritual. The contrast between flesh and architecture, movement and stillness, amplifies the machine's promise. Power, convergence, pulling humanity into infrastructure. They made people pause, question. They made the console feel like an event, not a purchase. The internal worlds mirrored the exterior language. Environments built in stone, concrete, glass. Interiors half-lit, suffused with fog. Long corridors broken by shafts of light. Shadows that breathe. In horror-like realms, the environment becomes oppressive. Every sound echoes. Every corner feels watched. Designers leaned into obscured sight, fog, narrow draw distance because the hardware could support it. In more open spaces, architects of those digital cities favored geometry over clutter, plazas instead of streets, silhouette over detail. That restraint visually deepens immersion. The hardware whispered restraint, the software echoed it. Because the machine gave enough breathing room to let atmosphere dominate, designers chose to emphasize feeling over spectacle. At launch, Sony was pitching something beyond hardware. It was pitching integration, film, network, media, game. To give that vision gravitas, the visual identity had to be serious. Marketing and design were aligned at a level rare in consumer devices. The hardware's visual pitch had to match the marketing's emotional pitch. That is why the machinery didn't feel tacked on. Everything spoke the same language. The ads, the console, the games, all layered on top of the same core. Quiet insistence. The aesthetic took hold because the cultural moment was aligned. At the turn of the millennium, optimism and anxiety mingled. Technology was growing fast. People sensed a shift. In that tension, the console offered a visual architecture for change. Black and blue were no longer cold, they became capacious. The design operated like a foil because it restrained. The digital worlds shone brighter. Because it withheld, the internal spaces felt richer. Because the advertisements were unsettling. Purchasing felt like crossing a line. In a room, the object receded while its promise expanded. Some machines disappear when they're gone. This one still leaves a shape in the dark where it used to stand tall above the rest.